99 problems, but the Belize Municipal election was not one. Hi, I'm Ranisha Gentle, and welcome back to another episode of The Gentle Perspective. Please click the subscribe button below, leave a like, and of course, feel free to comment. Stay tuned. This episode is actually a post-mortem discussion of the Belize municipal election held on March 3rd. Belizeans were truly undeterred by the actions of the People's United Party leading up to this election. So, in essence, this was actually a grand gesture to show their maintained faith in this administration. Do you think that the momentum of the People's United Party leading up to the municipal election was so much of a positive and fostering one for them to have still won by a landslide?
Um, I think a lot of people have been critical of the new government. However, they have just recently completed their 100 days um, time period to be able to make any sort of definitive criticism or judgment as to their performance. And I don't think it was not a sufficient amount of time to make that definitive criticism that they have not been performing to standard. And I think a lot of people were not buying into the narrative that the People's United Party is already engaging in corrupt activities or anything of that sort, particularly nepotism, which is the topic a lot of people have been talking about, to kind of defray voters from supporting the People's United Party in the municipal elections.
When the votes were all counted, it was clear that the PUP was victorious, even in some unsuspecting divisions.
From 2000, Benke has been red, primarily red, and there's only been one time, I think it was in 2003, where there was one PUP who took a seat in Benke, and there were six United Democratic Party.
It's evident the United Democratic Party need to go back into the woodworks and start everything over from scratch. After two massive blows, the party needs to reevaluate their goals, values, and intentions. All of this in an effort to regain the trust of the Belizean people if they ever want to have a chance in power once more.
We weren't so much informed as to what their background was and what they would have brought to the table had they been selected or elected. Um, and that's one of the biggest thing with the Belize City slate, for example, with the United Democratic Party. We know some of these people from social media because of the type of interaction and the type of discourse that they engage in on Facebook and these other social media platforms. But we were not so much informed as to what their background was and what they brought to the table, especially considering that many of them are just entering into electoral politics.
Yeah. And now keeping with the prominence of the UDP's success throughout the years, do you believe that scandal led to their demise in the polls for the general and now the municipal election? And when I say scandal, I don't only mean the literal actions, but the manner in which they were addressed. Oftentimes, ministers or even the former PM were quite insouciant on widespread corruption, the ability to mitigate the situation.
But certainly when we look at this polarity aspect that I speak about, it's like on one hand, you have a healthy democracy, and on the other hand, you have authoritarianism. And so if we look at the United Democratic Party, they have been in power since 2008, a lot of the decisions that voters go to the polls with is based off what they have done from 2008 all the way up to 2020. And so taking that into consideration, we've seen how easily the United Democratic Party could have moved away from that healthy democracy to governing a country from a place of almost dictatorship and being complacent with their power. And when people perceive that, that is when they kind of rebel or they become aggravated. And when they go to the polls, there's a complete swing of that pendulum. So it moves completely from that supporting that one party, which was once perceived to be a party that promoted healthy democracy, and there's a complete swing back to the support to supporting another party.
And while the PUP was mostly successful, there were a couple UDP candidates that made it past the threshold. How exactly does the concept of a mixed successful slate run when it comes to towns and city councils, where you have a mayor from one party having to govern a mixed council where some of his or her councillors are UDP and some are PUP?
No, that's an interesting question. It's one of the questions I raised off camera with Miss Audrey Matura. But it's an interesting question because we actually have a mayor who was re-elected in San Ignacio and one councillor from his slate, and the majority of the slate is from the People's United Party. And I listened to an interview which he gave after his victory in saying that if he has to dictate what will be done within the council, he will do so. And I said, well, that's not how it works. When you have a split council, majority of the times decisions are made from a 2/3 majority vote. And so there has to be that general consensus before there's anything passed within the council.
And I want to follow up on that word that you mentioned. Well, two words: dictatorship and majority. There are a few people weighing in on the second landslide of the People's United Party, and some are not on the receptive side of it because their argument is that Belize now has a super majority government. The People's United Party has greater control and there is little accountability to offer to them because now you have an exclusivity within both aspects of the governing system. What can you say on that?
I agree. I agree to a certain extent. I agree because any healthy democracy requires a strong opposition. And our opposition at this point in time is not the strongest. It's almost, I don't want to say non-existent, but it's almost as if though when they go to the House, it's just, and then they go to the Senate, everything is just like a rubber stamp. There is no check and balance there. However, I believe this is where we should see the people taking more of an active role in participating in keeping our leaders accountable. Also understanding that the roles of central government and municipal governments are completely different is critically important because some might say, well, PUP is majority in municipal, PUP is the ruling government of the day. However, it's important to understand that legally, the mandate by the municipal government does not necessarily interconnect with that of the central government. They have their own duties and responsibilities. And sometimes the things that we as constituents demand from municipal governments is not what they are meant to do legally. And so stuff like asking for assistance for housing, for food supplies and stuff like that. These are things that are supposed to be addressed to your area representative and the central government. Whereas in the municipal government, they should be focused on the rehabilitation of streets, your drains, all these things that you meet as you walk or step outside of your gate, out of your door. These are the first impact things that the municipal government deals with. And so it's critically important to understand the differences in their duties and responsibilities, and then also knowing that they go through different processes of check and balance.
And while we all know that the race is predominantly between the PUP and the UDP, can this be considered the dawn of a new day for a third party candidate or party to actually be taken seriously in upcoming elections? From what I can recall, this has been the election where you have in Agora, I believe, BPP candidates were leading more so than United Democratic Party. What do you think this means for a possible uprising and the the opportunity for more third party individuals or even unions?
I think at this present moment, with the United Democratic Party and the People's United Party being the two major political parties, it's going to be tough. Um, it's going to be tough changing the mindset of the Belizean population from that two-party system.
Quite a few of us were expecting mixed slates throughout, myself included. However, the low voter turnout was essentially a prelude to the continued grip that the PUP would have at the end of the day. Let's just hope the United Democratic Party takes these 5 years to take notes on things that should or should not be done. But that's just the gentle perspective. Thanks for watching. Kindly click the subscribe button below, leave a like, and of course, feel free to comment. Until next time, I'm Rachel Gentle. Stay safe.